Now we have a random number generated and stored inside of our computer guess. We're also going to capture the user's input, which they add into this number field. Since there's going to be multiple choices, we're going to store this inside of an array. So we'll say let our user guesses to be equal to an empty array to begin. And then we can scroll down and create a function which is going to compare the user's guess with the random number. And this function is going to be called compareGuess. Step 1 is going to be to grab the user's input from this box. Inside of our index page, this input has the ID of input box. So let's grab this with document.getElementById. And then we can select the value which the user enters. Just like earlier on, we also need to convert this into a number. So we can cut this out. We can use the number function and then pass this in. Finally, we can store this inside of a constant called the user guess. Now we have this guess. The next thing we want to do is to push this to our user guesses array. So let's access our variable. And then we can push a new value to our array. And the new value is our user guess. To check this is working, we can also display this inside of our user interface in our index.html. Down at the very bottom, we have this guesses section, which is going to output any previous guesses. So back to our function. Let's grab this span by the ID. And then set the inner HTML to be equal to user guesses. With this now captured, the next thing we need to do is to call our compareGuess function over in our index.html. So let's take a look for our input, which is just here. We can call our function each time the user adds a number and then hits enter by adding the onChangeEvent handler. The function name is compareGuess. Over to the browser and we can check this is working. Start our game. Let's add a value, so 40, 89, and our guesses are now displayed at the bottom. So there's various different ways we can add a space in between each one of these, but a really simple way we can do this is by going over to our script. We can create a space with an empty string and add this to our guess. So now if we add a number inside of here, 45, 78, these now have a space before each number. We are now in a position where we have the random number and also the user guesses. So now we need a way to compare these two values and check if they are right. Let's do this in the compareGuess function. We're going to create 3 different outcomes. The first one, we're going to check if the user's guess is higher than the computer's guess. We'll then add a second condition of else if, and this will check if the user's guess is less than the computer's guess. Finally, we'll add an else section. This is for if the user's guess is equal to the computer's guess. So first of all, let's deal with the user guess being too high. For now, all we're going to do is to output a message to the user. So document.getElementById. And the ID which we want to grab is our text output. This is our level 3 heading up at the top, which is going to replace the text of your guess. To do this, we set the inner HTML. And this can be a string of text which says, your guess is too high. We also need to clear this form input. Currently, when we add a value inside of here, and then hit enter, the value still stays inside of here. So let's go back and add this inside the if section. Currently, we have the input box just here, so we can grab this line of code just here. Bring this over, and we can set the value to be equal to an empty string. The next section, which is the else if, this is going to check if the user's guess is too low. So we can pretty much do the same inside this section, but our message is going to be too low. Finally, in the else section, we can also add this in. We don't need to reset the input field since the game is over. All we need to do is to set a message, which is going to be correct. So we can now go ahead and test this inside the browser. But just before we do, let's grab our computer guess. And we can now put this inside the console. Let's do this in the init function so we see this as soon as our game loads. We have our computer guess, which is just here. So let's do a console log with this value. Over to the browser, we can now right click and inspect to open up the console. So we now have a value of 83. Let's click on easy. So if we go lower, let's say 10. Whoops, it says it's correct. So let's see what we've done. Back to our function. So we've got the user guess is greater than the computer guess. This just wants to be the computer guess. So let's try this one more time. We have a value of 25. So we'll go lower, we'll say 10. Your guess is too low. And we'll go for 50. Your guess is too high. Let's try 25. And we get the message of correct. And now we've successfully compared the user's guess with the random number.